What's happening, people? Welcome into Bet and Breakfast on a Sunday. Ben Heisler, Ian McMillan with you. We got a Stanley Cup Final. We're going to dive into it, get over into the basic things that you need to know as the Avalanche and Tampa Bay Lightning back in it again. Ho hum, trying to go for three straight. Pretty remarkable accomplishment, something that they might be able to knock off for the first time since the 1980s in the New York Islanders, but we'll get into that. We also got some thoughts on a Sunday on a top stack at the Canadian Open this week. Ian, have you been to Royal St. George's before? Have you gotten a chance to explore the beauty of that course in your homeland?
I have not, unfortunately. It's a Toronto-based course. It's been a long, long time since I've been to Toronto, so I have not, but hopefully someday.
All right, very good. So we'll find out some of the plays at the top of the leaderboard, really stacked field at the top. And of course, we'll dive into our best bets of the day as well. Ian looking at a play in Major League Baseball for the Sunday night game. I got a mid-afternoon matchup in the WNBA that I'm very much looking forward to jumping on for today as the WNBA series of bets continues for your boy. But Ian, we got a Stanley Cup final. And first of all, I want to give you kudos. You're the king of content. And after the New York Rangers were up 2-0, you went on your Twitter account at Ian MacBets and you said, I have placed a probably uh, irresponsible amount of money on the Tampa Bay Lightning to come back and win this series. Sure enough, 4 straight games. You'd called the Rangers frauds earlier in the year. You corrected that take to not calling them frauds, but fraudulent, right? Like there's a slight difference between saying they don't deserve to be there to, well, they've made some changes and they still don't really deserve to be here, but they're not terrible. Here we are 4 games later and the Lightning are back. What changed in the series and what gave you a lot of confidence initially to say, all right, despite the fact that they're down 2-0, I fully believe this is an opportunity for them to take advantage and also hit on a nice payday as well.
Yeah, to be fair, I will say I put out that article and I placed the bet after they were down 1-0. So I was one game early with that take. I wish I waited until the end of game two. It obviously would have been a bigger payout. But yeah, the Rangers, I mean, all regular season, all postseason, their entire success just came down to Igor Shesterkin. And it was going to be hard for them to win a 7-game series when they were going up against the next best, or some would say the better goaltender, and Andrei Vasilevsky. So even though when I wrote that article and the Rangers were down, or the Rangers were up 1-0, and I still felt the same way after the Rangers were up 2-0, is if you look at the numbers, and I'm married to the stats, I'm married to the numbers. The Lightning were largely outplaying them. Like if you look at expected goals per game, the Lightning were like 4.07, I think, and the Rangers were like 2.63. Like it was almost a goal and a half difference in expected goals. And usually over a 7-game series, not every single time, but usually the team that's just outplaying the other team comes out on top. So the Rangers got outplayed in both the first 2 series. I didn't think they were going to win 3 series straight while getting outplayed. Like I said, especially because they had been finally playing against a good goaltender. And that's what we ended up seeing once the Rangers got up 2-0. If you remember, even in game 3, the Lightning or the Rangers were up 2-0 in game 3 too. Like they looked like they were about to take a 3-0 series lead. And then Andrei Vasilevsky just turned it on. I think the Rangers only scored 2-3 goals. The rest of the 2 goals, the rest of the series didn't score again. Maybe it's 3 goals, but
They got a goal in the last 3 games. 1 goal each. Tampa Bay beat them 4-1 in game 4, 3-1 in game 5, and then 2-1 in game 6. So we saw a real shift. And I remember betting the under in game 1 and it ended up being the Rangers 6-2. The total was 5.5. And I'm thinking, oh God, is this going to be a series that's going to be similar to what we saw in the Western Conference? Because those are both radically different teams, right? The Avalanche have been nonstop aggressive, taking a lot of chances. We know that Edmonton doesn't play any defense. And so I thought, okay, maybe the Rangers are going to try and change things up. Tampa Bay took a team like Florida, which was the best offense in the NHL this year, and took them completely out of their game. In 4 games, the best offense in the NHL scored 3 total goals. And I thought maybe the Rangers are doing something to Tampa initially. But as you said, it was about Vasilevsky getting hot at the right time and kind of proving that the Rangers offense, which had been riding the back of Shesterkin, was eventually going to start to fall back to earth.
Yeah, exactly. They had a very good power play unit all season, but they're never a very strong offensive team. They relied on power play goals and goaltending, and that's will take you far sometimes in the playoffs, but not against a team like the Lightning, who are not only deep, balanced, they're also experienced, obviously back-to-back defending champs. So the rightful team won, and it's setting up for a very good Stanley Cup final against the Avalanche.
Yeah, I know that the Avalanche had been favorites throughout the course of the season. Lightning, I would imagine at the beginning of the season, we can go back and double check this, might have been right near the top in the Eastern Conference to make it. So you're talking about two of maybe the preseason favorites, perhaps to get there. I suppose Florida could have been in that mix as well. But Tampa wasn't one of those teams that came out this year and felt very dominant, right? Like they ended up being a wild card team coming in, and they've found ways, especially in that second series against Florida, where they ended up having the sweep and then coming back. They've only, I think, lost one home game over the course of the entire Stanley Cup run. Conversely, you have the Avalanche that has not lost a game on the road. They've lost 2 total games at home over the course of their matchup. But initially looking at the odds, and you just posted something earlier this morning over at BetSided, we're talking about a Lightning team that's minus 250. The Avalanche are minus 250 as favorites in this series. The Lightning come in at plus 200. I know that the Avalanche have been there all season long, and then against Edmonton, they really poured it on. But I think you and I are both in agreement here. This feels like a bit too much in favor of Colorado. And I think a lot of it has to do with some recency bias. I think a lot of folks see the dominance over the Oilers, who dominated the Flames in the previous series. It just feels like it's a bit too much for a Lightning team that's proven over the course of the postseason run that they deserve to be here.
Yeah, I will say, if you're looking to bet on the Lightning, do it at WinBet, because I've been looking at the odds at some other places, and the Lightning are the odds are a lot, like significantly closer. Like Lightning around plus 150, plus 160, all the way up to 2-1 at WinBet. So if you're looking to bet on the Lightning, do it at WinBet, because you're getting a lot of value at that sports book if you're looking to bet on Tampa Bay. But yeah, I haven't been high on the Avalanche really all season. I obviously think they're a very, very good hockey team. I don't think they're as good as some people are praising them as, which means I don't think they deserve to be as big of favorites as they are. They have some holes. They're not great defensively. They're fine defensively. Their goaltending has actually been a big concern for me these playoffs. They have a team save percentage of 89.9 or 87% in the playoffs, so below 90% save percentage. That's not great. And of course, they probably won't have Nazem Kadri back in the lineup. He might make an appearance at some point, but of course he got hurt in the second last game in Game 3 against the Oilers, and I think it's a busted up thumb. So it's going to be tough for him to make a comeback. Not saying it's possible, but not saying it's impossible. But plays a very big role in that Avalanche team. He gives them a lot of depth. He gives them grit. He's one of the better second line centers in the NHL. So don't discount the importance of Kadri being out for this series as well.
Yeah, and as far as potential places, I know you and I both like the Lightning quite a bit, especially at that odds of plus 200 over at WinBet. If we're thinking about any other potential early lanes, I know that the Conn Smythe is not out yet over at WinBet, but who are a couple names that we may want to consider when it comes to figuring out who it should be?
Yeah, I think that the best play to make if you're looking for the Conn Smythe is probably Nikita Kucherov. I think I saw his odds, consensus odds at around 4-1, which is right around where Andrei Vasilevsky's odds are. But I don't think Vasilevsky has played strong enough throughout the entire playoffs to be given this award. So if you're going to take someone on the Lightning, I think the clear favorite should be Nikita Kucherov. You can get him at around, I think, consensus odds 4-1. So. And one thing that a lot of people don't necessarily remember is that it's probably not going to happen this series, but it's not unheard of for a player on the losing team to win the Conn Smythe. Like I said, it's not going to happen this year because I don't think there's been one player dominant enough to do that, but it's happened in the past. I think last time was 2004. J.S. Giguère did it for the Ducks. But yeah, if you want a little bit more, even more value on the Lightning, I think Kucherov would be the clear favorite. And the Avalanche, it's a little bit tougher because it's probably going to be Cale Makar, but if Nathan MacKinnon has a big series, it could go to him as well.
Yeah, Makar has led the team in points, I believe, over the course of the playoffs for them as well. You just don't see that from a defenseman in these types of series, but he's been flat out dominant. So I'll be curious as to where those odds initially come out from the Avalanche side. I think from the Lightning side, I think Kucherov, as you said, makes a whole lot of sense. So plenty of discussion over the course of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll have it tomorrow on Daily BetSlip. Make sure you guys tune in right here on YouTube and on Twitter. 5 p.m. East Coast time. You can catch us Monday through Friday for the Daily BetSlip, and then also here on Saturdays and Sundays for Bet and Breakfast at 11 a.m. East Coast time. Let's transition on. We got a little bit of PGA Tour action. The Canadian Open taking place, as mentioned in the earlier part of the show. I got to tell you, man, like from a leaderboard perspective, it's fun seeing some of these names, especially a week before we head over to Brookline for the U.S. Open. Right now, we're talking about Rory and Tony Finau at the top. They each are at -11. Justin Thomas, Sam Burns, who has 3 tour wins already this year, are behind at -9. Wyndham Clark, Alex Smalley also in the line as well. And this is also something that you heard about this morning at WynnBET, and so you've had the pulse of the betting nation right in the very get-go of this morning. So tell me a little bit about some potential plays, guys that you might be looking to jump on. Are we looking at the 2 favorites here? Is it Finau? Is it McIlroy? Let's start at the top between those two. Who do you like between the guys at the top to possibly outlast each other?
I think I would kind of go Finau. If I were to go by the numbers, I'd go Finau. He's been better tee to green than McIlroy has so far this tournament. McIlroy's been the better putter, but then again, Finau gained like almost 4 strokes on the field yesterday with his putting. I think he shot like 7 or 8 under yesterday. I think it was tied for his best round on the PGA Tour. But putting is usually a little bit more volatile. So while McIlroy has been the better putter throughout the event, I would rather bet on someone who's been better tee to green throughout the event, and that has been Tony Finau. So if you're looking to bet, I'm going to stay away from the top 2 guys, the two co-leaders, Finau and McIlroy. But if you want to bet on one of those 2 guys, I'd go Finau, who's plus 280. You're also getting a little bit better value on him than McIlroy heading into the final round.
There's also probably a little bit of like bettors having that feeling in the back of their throats anytime you're betting Tony Finau on a Sunday. You're like,
yes.
Is this going to be the day? I really don't want to get hurt again. I've seen this movie before. It's like all the Jurassic Park movies. You just know at some point it's not going to go the way that you initially thought it would be. Is there concern for you with Finau knowing that history, or at some point do you say he's too good of a golfer to just play the history here? He's going to come through, and this is a reasonable place for him to do it.
No, there's definitely concern for sure. That's probably why his odds are quite a bit longer than McIlroy's because of that history. But he did win the Northern Trust last year when he was in the final pairing, and then he went to a playoff and then was clutched in the playoff as well. So even though that is still a valid narrative and Finau hasn't played his best golf this year, he did kind of get over that hump, which we see for a lot of guys as kind of a mental block. And once they get past it, then they don't necessarily have those issues again moving forward. So Finau did get over that at the Northern Trust. He beat Cam Smith in the playoff, but I'm still concerned for sure, especially just because Finau hasn't been his normal self for the majority of the season. So it's going to be a fascinating final round for sure. And of course, McIlroy is trying to become the defending champ. He's the one who won it at the last time that they had the Canadian Open back in 2019.
So what about the guys that are bunched up at the top at -9? Justin Thomas obviously going to have the lowest odds amongst the 4 between him and Burns and Clark and Smalley. And Thomas, of all those guys, had the best score on Saturday. Shot a 63 after 2 69s on Thursday and Friday. Burns, nothing to slouch at on Saturday, too. In fact, you look at the bulk of the field. Saturday was a big moving day for a lot of the guys at the top. You had Burns shoot a 65, Wyndham Clark at a 68, and then Smalley, probably the most consistent of all 4 of those guys with 3 straight 67s. And sometimes when I'm looking at bet golf, I don't love taking the guy that was flat out dominant on Saturday because I expect a little bit of regression the following day. I like either finding guys that were just a tad bit worse or maybe had been right around where they should be, knowing that they're likely to bounce back. I mean, do you look at Smalley based off of his consistency and say there's some really, really good value for him? Do you look at somebody like Clark who, had the rough day on Friday, but a fantastic day Thursday, kind of fell to where he should be at around the 68? Who are you looking at in this group as a bet that you probably like to be able to make a jump and try and catch up to both Rory and Tony?
Yeah, so this group is the group where I'm placing 2 of my bets for today. First one is Sam Burns, 7-1 at WynnBET. I wrote an article about him 2 weeks ago after he won the Charles Schwab Challenge. We need to start respecting Sam Burns. This guy he's been fantastic. 3 wins on tour already this year. He's the number 9 ranked golfer in the world. His putting and approach play has been dialed in this week. He has lost, I think, half a stroke off the tee, so that's kind of the one area that's going to be key for him this today, is to kind of keep the ball in the fairway. But we need to start respecting Sam Burns, because when we talk about the top golfers on tour, his name never comes up. He's the number 9 ranked golfer in the world. For example, Rory McIlroy is the number 8, so he's like one spot below Rory McIlroy on the official world golf rankings. But yet, of the kind of the 4 big names that are going to be going after, and I'm including him as a big name now, his odds are the longest by a significant amount. So I am not going to be disrespecting Sam Burns anymore. He has the firepower to do it. He can rack up the birdies in a hurry. I'm going to take him at 7-1. And then if you're looking for a guy who's not a household name kind of in that group, and like I do think the winner's probably going to come from one of those 4 big name guys, because it's going to be tough to beat all 4 big name guys in a final round of an event. But I would go with the guy you mentioned, Alex Smalley, because of the top guys, he's actually led the entire field this event in strokes gained tee to green, gaining 4.49 on the field's tee to green. That's 1.28 more than the next best golfer, which is Justin Thomas. But he's losing strokes putting, so he has to figure out his flat stick today. But if he figures out his putting but keeps as consistent with his play tee to green, he could win this. Now, obviously, there's that added pressure factor. I mean, who knows who Alex Smalley is? I'm a diehard golf fan. I hardly know who this guy is. So taking down 4 titans of the sport in the final round of a tournament is going to be tough. But I think if anyone does it, any of those non-household name guys, I think it's Alex Smalley, just based on his tee to green play today so far this event.
So a few notes from a guy that you and I both follow, who Justin Ray over on Twitter.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's one of the best. So Tony Finau shot a 62 on Saturday. That's the lowest career round for him on the PGA Tour. And like you said, his putting been terrific. He gained more than 3 full strokes putting. It's the best round he's had. You talk about that, the ability to have some confidence going into the final day. At the same time, Rory, I forgot about this. He'd be the first European player to successfully defend his Canadian Open title back since Englishman James Douglas Edgar in 1920. So we're talking about a 102-year history behind the last time somebody had won back-to-back Canadian Open. So plenty of history here. I forgot that McIlroy had been really, really good. Also, something to consider between the two of them, PGA Tour career converting 54-hole leads at the after Saturday. Finau is 0 for 4. Rory McIlroy 8 for 14. So the issue for Rory has always been getting off to some of those slow starts, particularly in majors. But once he has the lead, especially after 54 holes, it's almost been a lock for him, converting at just under 60% of the time. So pretty impressive numbers for Rory in this particular spot. I would imagine, too, if he gets off to a slow start, he'll probably be the guy for me to jump on live, especially if it's slow or a couple guys catch up and maybe that number starts to go down just a little bit.
So one thing I wanted to look up while you were talking about those stats is actually how golfers have done in the 4th round so far this season. Obviously, it's a little different when you have the lead, so these numbers don't line up, directly with those, because it's always easier to play on Sunday if you have no chance to win. But in round 4 scoring average right now on tour, Tony Finau ranks 5th, Justin Thomas ranks 7th, and Rory ranks 11th. So even though but still the three top guys in contention today, the final pairing, the final group, top 11 in round 4 scoring average. So we might just see a heavyweight, just a knockout fest today. Just guys scoring birdies all over the place, which would be fun. So, and this, by the way, side note, this is exactly what the PGA Tour needed after the Live Golf event. They needed a final round, fireworks show, top of the guys, top golfers in the world going head to head. So could not have been a better finish for the PGA Tour. So I'm excited for that too.
I'm very excited. And from the perspective of Live Golf, I maybe paid attention to the first 20 minutes. I thought the broadcast and the stream was actually pretty well done. And then really after that, it was hard to keep my attention. I don't know if you had a chance to tune in at all or had any interest in tuning into that league. But if it is able to last, it's going to be because something happens that gets our attention, not just their short term, but I think long term play as well. even with some of the bigger names that agreed to come on, like DeChambeau starting to come on, to me, that's just not enough of a draw to draw consistent, access and entertainment value all throughout the course of the season as an actual competitor to the league. I don't know how you feel about it from that perspective.
Yeah, I did. I actually watched a good portion of it on Thursday. I didn't watch Friday or Saturday, and I just tuned in on Friday to see their viewer numbers, and it was like half of what it was on Thursday. So I think what we might see is what we saw what was the first spring league football league a couple of years ago? Was it the AFL? And I remember the opening weekend, like a ton of people watched because it was like the first competitor to the NFL in like a decade.
Was
And then
it
it
was it
completely
the
fell off.
initial XFL relaunch? I think the AFL's been the Arena Football League. But you could be right. They all come together. And again, I've watched maybe a few games of each, and then I completely tune it out because it hasn't been able to keep my interest long term. I'm sure somebody that's watching might have a general idea of what that league was. I think we saw a couple starts from one of their best quarterbacks who ended up becoming like a third string quarterback for like the Raiders or something.
Yeah, wasn't it Trace McSorley? Was it him?
If it was McSorley, so that would have been for Baltimore. It's either McSorley. There was another guy, Cooper something. We'll have to look it up. But yes, like a few names actually were able to cross over from this league into the NFL to get some roster spots. That's taken away from the CFL, which was a nice opportunity to bring some guys over. I remember Trey Roberson, former Indiana Hoosier, at one point I thought was going to be a little steal for the Chicago Bears at the cornerback spot. No dice.
People forget Warren Moon was a big CFL player.
Yeah, Warren Moon, Flutie played in the CFL. A lot of great names.
The Blue Bombers this year have become a complete side note, but the Blue Bombers this year have the chance to become the first three-peat Grey Cup champiins since the Warren Moon Edmonton Eskimos won like 5 straight back in the 80s. So a little connection to Warren Moon back then. No, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, listen, anytime we have an opportunity to drop a little bit of Blue Bombers and Warren Moon, I'm not gonna turn it down. I think that's really what the people have come to see.
I did want to say one final note about the Live Golf Tour, and it's kind of their biggest issue because they can get all the talent in the world that they want to get over there, but their biggest issue is that nobody cares who wins the event. Like, most of the time, people don't really watch golf because they want to watch like high level golf. They want to watch to see who wins the event, whatever event it is. It's like, okay, who's going to win? In my case, the Canadian Open because it's my country's tournament. Who's going to win? The Players Championship. Who's going to win the FedEx Cup? Nobody cares who's going to win the Live International London event. Like, it's just, who cares?
Right. There's no gravitas to any of the actual tournaments yet.
Right. Exactly.
So. We'll see whether or not they're able to put it together. I have my doubts, but there's plenty of money. And a lot of times with money, you get some bit of interest initially. It's the question of how you keep a lot of those viewers fully engaged the rest of the way. But I do want to talk about an actual PGA event. You talk about gravitas. U.S. Open coming up next Thursday. So we are already 5 days away from the third major of the year. If you're looking at some of the major names at the top of the list, the usuals are going to stand out as always. Jon Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, currently the co-favorites at 12-1 over at WynnBET. Justin Thomas and Rory McIlroy at 14-1. One guy that I was thinking about, your guy Sam Burns. Right now they're currently 30-1. If you think Burns is going to come down and win this event or possibly finish top 2, top 3, you might want to jump on him before today is done. If you're talking about futures, because I would imagine that number continues to go up. 30-1 for a name like Sam Burns. He probably wasn't in that category even about a month or so ago. He's probably in that 60-1 or 80-1 category. But if you're looking at some of these early names, Cam Smith is there at 15-1, Morikawa and Schauffele are 20-1. Koepka, DJ is on the list, even though he's playing in the Live tournament at 25-1. Spieth and Fitzpatrick there as well. Is there anyone in particular that you look at the futures list before really diving into our full coverage over the course of the week that you say to yourself, okay, that's a good number? That's not just a reasonable number. That's a good number to jump on from the earlier side.
Well, first of all, great point about Sam Burns, because usually what sportsbooks do is they like have just their odds open and they really like kind of key them in on Monday after the previous tournament. Especially if Sam Burns plays well today, you will not be able to get him at 30-1. So I will be betting on Sam Burns today before he tees off. I'll be betting on him to win the U.S. Open. So great point. I'm glad you brought that up. But the golfer that I am looking at is a guy who I've already bet on several times this season. He's already broken my heart at the last major at the PGA Championship when he started the last day in second place and then collapsed. Is Matt Fitzpatrick. This will be my last time betting on Matt Fitzpatrick, but he's just too good.
Don't make promises you can't keep, Ian. I've been right there with you. Don't make those promises because you know at some point you're going to go right back to him. It was Corey Connors before, and then it was Matt Fitzpatrick. These guys are going to live around you for a long time.
Yes, and then I bet on Corey Connors again this week to finish top 5, and he stunk. So, but Matt Fitzpatrick first still on tour in total strokes gained. Statistically, he's actually been the best golfer on tour this season. Third in strokes gained tee to green, 32nd in putting, 8th in around the greens, 24th in strokes gained approach to green. But also there's a little bit of history this week with Matt Fitzpatrick where he won the U.S. Amateur, or as they say in golf, amateur, at Brookline back in 2013, I think it was. So obviously that's a long time ago, almost a decade ago. But he's going to have confidence. He's going to have maybe a little bit more course experience than the other guys this week. Even though it was that long ago, that confidence still has to carry over a little bit. And he's played well this week too, so pretty good form heading in. I think he was leading heading into the weekend, and then only shot even par yesterday. So he's like still top 10 as of right now heading in the final round. Like he's too far back to probably come back and win. I think his odds are like 60-1 to come back to win. But still, regardless, good form. Statistically, he's been the best golfer on tour this year. Still doesn't have that win in North America, which is obviously his big kind of concern. But I think Brookline fits him well. He's won here in the past. I'm going to give it another shot with Matt Fitzpatrick.
Fair enough. 25-1 feels like a reasonable number for a guy that's been consistently good all year long. You just hope that he finally is able to put it together. I remember for a long time after the PGA got back and started after that 3-month break once COVID hit, Fitzpatrick for about maybe like a year-long stretch didn't miss a cut. So he's always been a guy that's like hanging around, starting to finally break through a little bit, and then just not giving you what you need on the back end. But I think that's a perfectly reasonable play. I don't know if this is a bit chalk. I guess the number would indicate that it is, but I just think Cam Smith at some point needs to put all of these incredible rounds together. The numbers, kind of like Fitzpatrick, really back him up as far as somebody that is giving you elite levels. He's 8th on the tour amongst the field of the U.S. Open in total strokes gained. He's 5th in short game, 5th in approach, 9th around the green, 10th in putting. The issue for him has been off the tee where he ranks 81st. But like we know with Cam Smith, doesn't feel, and these are in his last 24 rounds, I should mention. We know that historically that's not really been an issue for him. It's been an issue for him as of late, but we're still talking about a guy that won the Players back in March, finished 3rd at the Masters, 13th at the PGA Championship. Ian, he hasn't finished worse than 15th, other than the miscut at the Sony Open, since he finished 34th in August of last year at the BMW. He's always around the top 10. He's always around the top 5 with 4 top 5 finishes over his last 8 tournaments. And by the way, I screwed up. He didn't miss the cut at the RBC Heritage. So we're talking about 2 missed cuts on January and then in April. But every other tournament, especially with majors, he's right there in the thick of things. 15-1, maybe it's a bit of a chalky play, but when he's at his best, he's among the elite in the game, and we've seen him play exceptionally well. It just hasn't lasted for the course of an entire tournament. But I think the U.S. Open can get him there this year.
Yeah, he hasn't been playing well this week. He did make the cut this week, but he's T42. He just teed off. My biggest concern with him is his driving accuracy. Usually U.S. Open too, the rough is so thick that you have to be accurate, or else you're hitting out a tall fescue all day. So I need to take a little bit further look into Brookline to see just how bad that rough's going to be. But that would be my number one concern with Cam Smith, would be his driving accuracy, because that's really the only weakness of his game. But that could cost him at a U.S. Open event.
Perfectly reasonable. I figure with the really good iron play and also his ability to chip and putt, he can get himself out of trouble. Good stand save percentage for Cam Smith too. But you're right. If you get into the really thick shit over at the U.S. Open at the Country Club, that's going to be a problem. We'll have plenty more coverage, by the way, all throughout the week on U.S. Open. Ian's going to be back on Monday for Green on the Greens with Cody Williams over at FanSided. You can catch that show live at 6 p.m. East Coast time right here on YouTube. So make sure you guys come back for that. You guys will have your top fades, best bets, outright plays, and then top 5, top 10, and top 20. Anything I'm missing from that upcoming show?
No, it's perfect.
Awesome. So be sure you are back again. Also, we have a really exciting announcement coming on Monday as well. If you enjoyed our Masters contest and PGA Championship contests, we're an opportunity to compete in a giveaway for $500. I think you're really going to like this one for the U.S. Open. We'll give you all the details coming up on Monday, so make sure you guys are following us at BetSided on Twitter to check that out. All right, and before we get out of here, let's dive into best bets for today. You got one on the Sunday night game for the Mets and the Angels. All of a sudden, the red-hot Angels, after losing 14 straight, could be back in it. It'll be tough for them to get back into the postseason because no team that has lost more than 11 games in a row in baseball history has ever gone on to make the playoffs, and the teams that have lost 11 in a row have only done it 3 times. One of them being the 2017 Dodgers, and they were like 55 games over 500 when they lost 12 in a row in September. So it really didn't matter all that much for them. But we'll see what happens now with the Angels. They're hosting the Mets on Sunday night. Give me your play for that game. Who do you like?
Yeah, if there is a team that can come back and make the playoffs, so I think the Angels might be able to do it. I was talking about this with Donovan on Thursday, and I'll get to, I'm obviously on the Angels. I'll get to my pick here in a second, but usually when teams are on big, long losing streaks, it's because they suck and they're just a bad team. I don't think that's the case with the Angels, and I made the comparison with Donovan. I think it's like a case where when you're playing blackjack, and the dealer you're playing against just keeps getting like 20s and 21s, and like no matter what you do, you're just losing. Like sometimes cold streaks just happen. Kind of, it's a mix of other teams are playing against playing well, and you maybe not playing your best stuff. So I'm not putting too much stock into the Angels losing streak. I still think they're a very solid team. I'm going to take them against the Mets tonight. The Mets are much worse against lefties this season. They dominate righties, but almost every single batter on their team is much worse against lefties, and they're facing lefty starter Patrick Sandoval, who's been fantastic this season as a 2.81 ERA. So I think the Angels have the starting pitching advantage here because they're going up against Taijuan Walker, who has a 3.28 ERA, and the opposite is true for the Angels. They're much better against righties this season. Obviously, Taijuan Walker is a righty, 6th in OPS this season. Even with the recent cold streak, they're still 6th in OPS against right-handed pitchers this season. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of regression from the Mets. They haven't been great this month. Just in June alone, they're 24th in bullpen ERA. I thought their bullpen was kind of overperforming through the first couple months of the season. Also 17th in batting average, 20th in OPS this month as well. So I think we're seeing a little bit of regression from the Mets. I like the Angels quite a bit, minus 110. Basically, I had to pick them today.
Yeah, like the play a lot. And you also mentioned the Mets. So on Memorial Day, on May 31st, the New York Mets were 10.5 games up on the Atlanta Braves, 12.5 games up on the Philadelphia Phillies. They were in cruise control in this division. Fast forward to today, June the 12th, Sunday, it's a 5.5 game lead for the Mets. And it's not like they've been just completely playing terrible. They're 5-5 over the last 10 games. They still have a plus 63 run differential, but Atlanta, 10 games in a row. Philadelphia has won 9 games in a row. Every team is slowly starting to gain on the Mets. And I joked with Reed, our resident Mets fan, like at some point, like you start to look at the standings and go, wait, like we're not even losing and we're still starting to find a way to turn into the Mets here. A bit of a precarious situation, but they still should win this division. But with the way that the Braves and the Phillies have all of a sudden woken up, just in the last less than 2 weeks alone, it should pause Mets fans for already celebrating an NL East division, thinking it might be a little bit more competitive than you think. And again, if you're the Phillies, you always knew that team could hit, but they're still a softball team in the field. So especially with Bryce Harper now having a DH the rest of the year, I could see some regression coming their way as far as defense goes. But I do like the Angels play tonight against the Mets and Taijuan Walker. As for my best bet of the night, I'm going WNBA. Really intriguing matchup that I'm not sure why the odds makers have Phoenix on the road +8 against the Washington Mystics. And the Mystics are a good team, Ian. Elite level defensive team. Well, they haven't really shown over the last few games. They've been shorthanded. They gave me just a terrible beat last Wednesday. They were home against the Chicago Sky. They were up 10 points with 5:37 left to play. They were up 17 late in the third quarter. The line was 2.5. And Elena Deladon goes out in the second half. They win the game by 2 after Chicago comes all the way back in the final 5 minutes to win it. Lost that game by 0.5 point. But they're banged up, and we're not sure whether Deladon, their best player, is going to go today. I know they've won 2 games in a row. They beat good competition. Chicago's a very good team. But they beat Minnesota on the road, who's not particularly good. That's a bottom 3 team of the WNBA. And conversely, the Mercury started off terrible. But there's a ton of talent on that team. Diana Taurasi, Skylar Diggins-Smith. They're hopefully going to get Tina Charles back today. This is a team that's also won 2 games in a row. They beat a good Atlanta team at home. Same thing against the Sparks. Beat them by 7 points at home. Yes, they're 1-5 away, and you're going from West Coast to East Coast. But Washington's banged up, and the thing that they should be able to take advantage of is Phoenix ranks dead last in opponent points per 100 possessions. Washington ranks 3rd. But if you watch Washington's offense operate without Deladon, it's really not the same team. So I think Phoenix is just getting far too many points. The line should probably be closer to 4 or 5. So the fact that I can get them at 8, and I've already seen the line start to move some other sports books towards Phoenix's side. I love the fact right now at WinBet you can get the Phoenix Mercury at +8. They're playing far better than they have been at the early portion of the season. They're starting to figure out this lineup. This is a team that was supposed to be a top 3 team in the WNBA this year, and I really like them to get back where they need to be. I don't know if they're going to win outright, Ian, but I do like them at +8 today.
I know you got off to a hot start with your WNBA bets. Have you still been doing well with them?
Been a little hit or miss. Last Sunday, I got cocky and I wasn't working, and I just decided to throw out some plays on social to say, like, all right, let's keep the run alive, and ended up going 1-5. So that was after I think like an 8-1 week, and then it's been a little bit here and there. I think I have to double check, but I think I am 4-3 over the course of this week heading into Sunday. So had the really bad run, and starting to get myself hopefully back up a little bit more today.
I like it. I similar vein with me in well, similar in a sense where a different niche sport I was trying to get into and become like the CFL guy this week. I bet on the first 2 CFL games and neither hit. So I was on 2 favorites to cover. They both won, didn't cover. So I'll get back on the CFL train this week, though.
Absolutely. I like that all of us are slowly starting to dive. Like Reed has become our college baseball guy. Donovan dove headfirst into tennis. Peter's got all sorts of different angles on the NBA that none of us have thought of before. So everyone's really starting to dive in, cover all these different sports from all the different angles here at BetSided. And that is our show. Appreciate all you guys hanging out with us today. Ian will be back for Green on the Greens tomorrow. We will, of course, have daily bet slip at 5 p.m. on Monday as well. So make sure you guys come and hang out with us for that. And then if I'm not mistaken, are you and Donovan going to have one more edition of the veteran versus the rookie for the Stanley Cup Final?
Yes, we should. Yeah. Donovan has a 1-point lead heading into the final round. So in order for me to win, I need to hit both the winner and the exact amount of games. So stay tuned for that. That should be fun.
So the rookie coming through for the Stanley Cup Finals. That should be a lot of fun. So for my guy, Ian, I'm Ben. Always appreciate you guys hanging out with us. If you haven't followed us on Twitter yet, make sure you do so at BetSided. And if you've been watching us on YouTube, make sure you guys go ahead, give it the thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel as well. We will talk to you again on Monday. Until then, so long, everybody. May all of your best bets hit today. Be good.